All right, tariffs. I can't tell you how much of my day yesterday, like the last couple of weeks, is spent dealing with business leaders and members of Congress of both parties who say they've never seen anything like it. I've never seen so much elite opinion saying the president is committing political and economic and policy suicide with these tariffs, begging for change, hoping for the best, but extremely worried. So, a couple things to show. First, these are two elements that uh, illustrate what elites are thinking. Almost every elite I know. 103, please. This is a Seth Golden tweet. Uh, and again, they may be wrong, but this is what Seth Golden says. Liberation Day will define how stupid we are. Number one, extremely stupid would lead to recession. Number two, above average stupid, stagflation. Number three, moderately stupid, negotiable but pain. Four, not stupid, negotiable hairline healing fractures. In other words, people think this is either really dumb or an epic historical failure. Here's a cartoon 104. Again, this summarizes almost all elite opinion, including some members of Congress who are supportive of President Trump's position publicly, but privately are really worried. Now, everybody's going to be focused on what happens at 4 o'clock, without a doubt. But I continue to hear that the bazaar is open and that even today, and certainly after today's announcement, the president will be open to negotiating. Here is Caroline Leavitt yesterday in the press briefing, basically saying, yes, the bazaar is open. Change can occur even after the announcement.
Or countries, if they change their policies either before tomorrow or after tomorrow, can have the president alter what he's planning for that country or that sector. Is that a possibility? And if so, what factors the president consider in making those changes?
Well, the ultimate change for these companies and these countries, Mark, will happen when they decide to do business in the United States of America. And as I just laid out, they will face no tariffs at all if these companies choose to invest here in the United States and to move their production and their manufacturing here to the United States as well. As for tomorrow, the president will be addressing the decades of unfair trade practices that have ripped our country off and American workers off. It has hollowed out our middle class. It has destroyed our heartland, and the president is focused on reshifting our global economy to ensure that America is once again the manufacturing superpower of the world.
So if they do something today or later in the week that's a pledge for future activity, would that be good enough potentially to alter the policy?
Again, the president has been looking at the very unfair trade practices of the past. Certainly, the president is always up to take a phone call, always up for a good negotiation, but he is very much focused on fixing the wrongs of the past and ensuring that American workers have a fair shake.
So if someone calls after tomorrow and says, hey, I'm ready to make a change, he'd be open to that?
The president is always open to taking calls.
Okay. A question from one of our community members.
Okay,
Katie,
good. We won't play Katie. Dan, if you were an advisor to Canada, say, or Belgium, and they said, we don't like what he announced on the Rose Garden Wednesday night, what would you tell them to do?
I would tell him to put retaliatory tariffs on because I think Trump's going to blink. And I've been saying this for months, the entire time now. I think he wants you to come to him immediately, grovel. He'll cut a deal and he'll say he won. Show strength, show action, move on. And I think the fact that they're now teasing, and I predicted this yesterday, I knew it. They're going to say, well, we're making progress. We're going to give it a week. Like, he's going to try to get out of this because the number one thing is the question is just, it's the two Ds, degree and duration of financial pain for Americans. That's the bet. That's everything. They're all admitting there's going to be pain. How long and how much are we willing to stomach? And if I were one of these countries, I'd say, don't blink. He'll blink first.
Sean, is that the advice you'd give Canada or one of these other countries?
Well, so Canada's in a separate category because
you're right. Yeah. Let's do Belgium.
Yeah. So if you're Belgium there's something that we're forgetting in this discussion, which I think is critical. And this is why I was actually perplexed by her answer on this, because the way that the president has laid this out and the way that I have understood from the folks at some fairly high levels that this is being enacted is Belgium has a 10% tariff on autos. We're going to raise our auto to 10. You take yours to 0. We take ours to 0. I support that. I mean, that's to me like the idea that we are getting screwed by other countries is something that has been happening for way too long. Israel yesterday announced that they would take their tariffs down to match ours. That to me is great. We've seen early signs from both Malaysia, Vietnam. The EU has said that they'll take their 10% auto tariff down. I think that where I think there needs to be clarity is to say, and again, I mentioned this the other day, the problem is going to come in this area of non-tariff barriers. The VAT, for example, in EU is going to be a problem because it's hard to quantify. How do you say, here's what our VAT is worth? And how do we equate that to 50 different states having sales tax? Not every state has a sales tax. But I would say to the country at hand, figure out how to make it clear, because if the United States is basically saying you have a tariff on our goods coming into your country by X tariff, India 100% in some areas, more than that in others, then all you're saying is we're going to match whatever that tariff rate is. And if you take yours down, we take ours down. And that's where I think that the administration needs to focus a lot more, is to say all we're doing is creating a level playing field, full stop. Once they get into beyond that, I think they're going to lose a lot of people who don't understand, because it's a very simple message. You charge us X, we'll charge you X. You take yours down to Y, we take ours down to Y. And I'm not sure that that's getting across.
But Sean, if you were saying to Belgium, okay, you have a 10% tax tariff on cheese, we put on 10%. All right, let's take them both off. How do you negotiate the non-tariff stuff?
Well, I think, again, part of what I've been told is when you go through there's a 301 section, a 232, all these little trade things. And what's the administration claiming they did? If it's easy, then do it, right? In other words, if it's just a tariff rate, then you have to question whether or not what the US does is going to harm you, how adversely that's going to harm you. Some countries may say, great, we don't really care.
Right.
But I think if you're going to then take your tariff rate down, where I think the rub is going to come in is if you go to Belgium and say, your tariff rate's at 10 on cheese, we're going to raise ours to 10 on cheese. Belgium says we'll take ours to 0, you take yours to 0. And then the US comes back and says, yeah, but we got these other problems.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yep.
Because now Belgium's going to say, wait a second, we went to 0, you went to 0, and now you want more. That's and the devil today is going to be in the detail. If it's simply tariff rates, then this is going to be a really easy negotiation, or potentially. If you get into the sort of the ambiguous stuff, I think that's where, to Dan's point, they're going to say, well, then we're going to retaliate, because you can't come after us for our tax system or whatever unless you can quantify it in a much better way.